Right guys, the new Sentinel meta is here, and it might not be what you're expecting from a Sentinel Titan, from a Void Titan, but truly the defensive style is now the only real way to get by playing on a Sentinel Titan in this current sandbox. If you try and get up close against a Behemoth or a Revenant, you are just going to get destroyed by Stasis. There are no ifs or buts about it. Now, if you still are loyal to the Void Titan cause, and if you are, I respect it. I really do respect it. If you are loyal to the Titan cause, then you want to be rocking one of these Saturn Rampart exotics that basically gives you a see-through Titan wall. And obviously, this is an exotic that's very strongly suited to long-range gameplay, relatively passive gameplay, but it's basically the only way you can get by on a Sentinel now in this sandbox. So as you can see, Assault Barricade is the exotic perk. You and your allies can shoot through your towering barricade, which has reduced health and duration. We've also got Abyssal Charge on our gauntlets. When you get a void melee kill, you become charged with light. So in the event that you do get up close and personal and you don't get immediately frozen and killed, well, you can get a melee kill and you can get charged with light, which is really nice. Now, of course, Saturn Rampart, it's a see-through wall, and it's a cool exotic, man. It's something I personally have never really valued or used a lot. But as I said, now in this sandbox, if you're playing on a Sentinel Titan, you can't really play it the way it's supposed to be played. And obviously that speaks volumes to the imbalance of Stasis, but we've spoken about that plenty enough already, so I'm not going to dwell on that too much. I'm simply showing you what, in my opinion, is now the most effective Sentinel setup. And we're going to talk a little bit more about the general playstyle and the general mentality you need to have in order to make this work. It is all about controlling the distance and keeping your opponents at a safe distance and really away from you as much as possible. Putting up the barricade in smart positions is what's going to help you a lot to obviously try and keep the distance, but also to then punish players who are not expecting to get shot through a wall. Now you can see here on the Sentinel, 3 of the 4 perks on the tree, on top tree Sentinel, they are all revolving around getting melee kills. And as I previously mentioned, that is kind of, been rendered useless to a certain extent, especially in 3v3 in Trials of Osiris. If you're going to be going into Trials and trying to shotgun melee people on this subclass, it's not going to go well for you. You are going to get frozen and then shattered. That is a given. That is an absolute given. So what you want to do is kind of, even though it kind of sucks to go against the grain of the nature of the subclass, which is obviously undeniably centered around securing melee kills, since all 3 of the neutral game perks on top tree Sentinel are based on your melee ability. So it's kind of tough and unnatural, in my opinion, to then completely forego that and play a different way. But it does have its values and its merits, and I'm here to really focus on that, because obviously we've spoken about Stasis, we've spoken about PvP and blah blah blah. It's not good, it's not this, and there's only so much you can say about it. For this video, I'm just simply trying to show you a way to play Sentinel that will not essentially make you a liability to your team. Like I said, if you play Sentinel how it used to be supposedly meant to be played, you will just get frozen, and it's not a good time. But here in Trials, you can see Saturn Ramparts. I ran it for 1 or 2 cards. Admittedly, I didn't run it the entire time. I switched off to Behemoth because, quite frankly, in this sandbox, Behemoth suits me a lot more than Sentinel. I know it's kind of shitty. I know everybody loves my suppressor grenades, and I know, man, I love it too, but I've been playing the same class for like 4 years pretty much, and it feels good to switch it up. But also, like I said, in this sandbox, you can't really afford to play too aggressively with this subclass anymore. It's just not a very viable thing to do, and this setup is kind of viable. Obviously, for me, I'm super aggressive generally as a player. I'm very impatient. I don't like waiting around. I don't like playing the distance. But in this gameplay you're seeing here, I did try to adapt my gameplay to what is the most effective option for me. And Titans are so good, man. They are so good for controlling a lane. In this meta, in this sandbox, particularly in Trials, people really like stacking up in a lane with either 120 RPM hand cannons, snipers, arbalest, and this is a pretty solid counter to that. A tip I would give you with Saturn Ramparts is try not to preemptively place that wall in obvious spots, Maybe start an engagement without your Satan's Ramparts and then try and bait people into peeking the lane a little bit too bravely, then boom, pop the wall and take them down. You can run it with a variety of different weapons. Obviously, I was still rocking a shoddy. This Patron of Lost Causes scout rifle in the duality has started to become a bit of a loadout for me, and I believe it works well because obviously the Citans with the scout goes pretty decently together. The scout rifle is dealing a ton of flinch. I'm able to shoot them through the wall, and it's not too bad. It's a very, very solid play style, and playing like that really does prevent how often you're going to get frozen and whatnot. But obviously in certain situations there's absolutely nothing you can do. At the end of the day, you can't always force long range engagements in trials. Sometimes you're going to end up in a close range engagement, and yeah, it's very likely that you will lose. Make no mistake about it, running light based subclasses is pretty much putting yourself at a clear disadvantage nowadays. The only subclass I believe really truly is not at a disadvantage would probably be Dawnblade. You can see here Ward of Dawn still has its use. I popped it in a tricky situation surrounded by enemies. It was more or less a situation where they couldn't reposition in time, and then I take advantage of weapons of light and secure a bunch of kills. So, you know, it's got its merits. Ward of Dawn and suppressor grenades are still very strong. I will say though, Ward of Dawn against Stasis is pretty much a nightmare. I had one death where a dude just came into the bubble and threw a glacier grenade at my feet, and it put me up in the air and I just got misadventured. Like, Stasis just makes a mockery of a bubble, but I will say leaning into suppressor grenades is very, very useful, especially say for example if two of your teammates are rocking Stasis and you're on Sentinel. If you were to tag maybe one or two people with a suppressor grenade and then call that out to your teammates, they can push in on suppressed enemies who are on Stasis and just absolutely obliterate them with their own Stasis abilities. So suppressor grenades definitely have a lot of strength, but like I said, it is quite reliant on your teammates to then go in there and punish them and capitalize. If you try and go in there and punish them on your own, it might not go so well, because if you're playing on a Sentinel without an exotic that's going to add to your lethality, for example Dune Marchers, for example Syntheseps, it's very hard to run in there and do damage on this subclass. The movement is subpar. There's no, you know, there's nothing really there. If you can secure a melee kill, you will get Abyssal Charge going, and you know, it's very effective. You can see there the behemoth got shut down by the suppressor grenade. So Sentinel still has its merits, guys, and if you are trying to keep Sentinel Titan dream alive, I do believe Saturn Ramparts are now the best exotic to use. Does it suit me very well? No, it doesn't. Anyone who's ever seen me play the game knows that me and Citan Ramparts are not the most obvious pairing. But if I do bring out the Defender Titan for you guys in trials, for example, this will be the exotic that I probably choose to use. Guys, that's the end of the video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. If you can, don't forget to leave a like on the video. It really, really helps me out. And yeah, that's it from me, man. Much love.